You've seen it in Stranger Things. You've heard your parents reminisce before. Now, close your eyes and imagine a typical day in the 80s for a child. Sunshine streams in through your window, and your mom comes into the basement holding a tray of Capri Suns and triangle-cut PBJs. Somehow she incorporated sun-dried tomatoes into it. What the hell, Mom? Delivered to your group of friends. The basement is littered with G.I. Joe dolls, Slinkies, and other childhood toys that you've outgrown. Your posse of friends all break their concentration from the game of Dungeons & Dragons you've been DMing. Oh boy, they probably aren't prepared for that beholder you're about to spring on them. As they clamber together, eating their sandwiches and trying to slay the little hobgoblins together, you imagine and try and calculate how well they will do, and the casualties that may occur. Meanwhile, the cleric, warlock, and mage all rely on each other for healing, buffs, and creative solutions to the problems. We'll come back to this scenario later. For now, we have to focus on the main subject of this podcast: innovation and the current state of it in our economy. When was the last time some rando had a brilliant idea and was able to execute it and the product was able to compete with major companies of today? Sure, there are a few outliers, but the rate of business formation by Americans ages 20 to 34 has fallen sharply since 2010, and millennials aren't starting nearly as many enterprises today as baby boomers were creating when they were the same age. According to a 30-year-old study covered by the Washington Post, long-established companies represent an increasingly large share in U.S. firms, with those that have been in businesses for more than 5 years now accounting for more than 2/3 of companies. Meanwhile, the proportion of companies of every age from 1 to 5 years old has shrunk over the past 35 years. This problem is partly caused by the current state of rampant commercialism and materialism, and how humans are reacting to companies' attempts to push their products on them by becoming easily suggestible and gullible. Our independence from products is a lessening margin, making us less of a human with experiences and personal opinions, and more of a capsule of pre-programmed information from companies that reap the benefits of our malleability. In fact, a study conducted by Kimberly Young, a licensed psychologist and professor at St. Bonaventure University in New York, found in our current state of technological reliance, corporative inventions at their finest, quote, excess tech usage atrophies the frontal lobe, breaking down ties between different parts of the brain. Too much technology use also shrinks the outermost part of the brain, making it more difficult to process information. Erickson says this can affect the way people interact. You might see changes in your ability to regulate emotions, your ability to remember certain events, your ability to pay attention to different things, he said. These things altogether will certainly affect how you communicate with people. This continuous cycle of company to product to consumer to company is exponentially decreasing the chance of people and consumers to create a product of their own, and disrupting this monopoly of ideas that's become a modern reality. Our outlook on products have become less choice-oriented and more need-oriented. Instead of wanting to buy a car, we feel we need to buy a car for social status and for essentiality. For major companies and corporations, this American leniency towards spending is incredibly beneficial, driving the wealth disparity and driving out small local businesses. Not only is the economy affected, but the American psyche is affected, making the United States population lack motivation, creativity, and motivation in the economic world. Our lack of new products, ideas, and exposition is causing the wealth disparity and power dynamic found, in essence, in an authoritarian regime. People aren't able to think for themselves or express freedom from their masters. Think back to our previous peaceful scenario, and think back to what our little 80s DM persona had going on through his head. Our little friend posse were using their brains to calculate unique solutions probably never played before statistically, to work together and solve the problem at hand. Eldritch Blast is only a tool at the disposal of the young warlock, where creativity and imagination must be a factor of where he decides to aim it, the possible effect of it, and how the other players can build off his action. As quoted by Sage Journal's Boston Scientific, an organizational culture that supports autonomy and achieving clearly communicated goals will likely be more successful in terms of creativity and innovation than an organization that does not. An environment of freedom and autonomy is more likely to tap into the intrinsic motivation of its employees, which has been a key factor in promoting creativities in organizations. Sound familiar? These simple RPG games and other activities that have open-ended problems and opportunities is what we are lacking these days. Compare Dungeons & Dragons to, let's say, Angry Birds for a second. Angry Birds has one clear objective: kill the green pigs with a horrifying bird massacre. Dungeons & Dragons, however, never has one clear goal. DMs create unique, intricate play fields for teams to interact with. And not only will you die in Dungeons & Dragons if you don't use your brain to find creative solutions with friends, but you will never really experience the feeling of using cutting words and killing a dragon by calling him an asshole. In fact, the highest proportion of entrepreneurial accomplishments is found in companies that are least segmented and segmentalist, companies that instead have integrative structures and cultures emphasizing pride, commitment, collaboration, and teamwork, all of which are found in the intricate world of RPGs and imaginary explorations. Now, I know the leap from some stupid board game to rampant capitalism is far-fetched, but the idea behind it is still there. The creative, multimodal, teamwork aspects of this world-building game have been proven to increase our potential towards rebelling against the oppressive power of corporate influence. In a broader sense, any open-ended creative activity such as art, music, or anything emphasizing pride, commitment, collaboration, and teamwork would do nothing but make us more independent, free-thinking citizens. Dungeons & Dragons has the potential to domino into something greater than just that. To succeed in a revitalization of the arts would be a reboot of small businesses, ideas, and switch power dynamic from people not only being consumers, but also producers to each other in the community. Smaller businesses could decrease wealth disparity, increasing spending and therefore creating a larger circulation of funds for the population. More funds means a higher quality of life and a better environment for us to function. Increasing innovation and drive for business means more competition in the global economy, giving the USA higher GPA and influence and competition overseas. Implementing this sort of free-ended education into schools, homes, and other learning centers is extremely important. No information drilling, but more along the lines of giving a concept to students and having them develop ideas and interpretation from their own experiences and having discussions through artistic mediums and conversations. Dungeons & Dragons is merely an example of a potential medium of expression that will connect these puzzle pieces together. Sure, changing the school system and the way we are taught is a huge project. Imagine how long we've been taught to memorize, repeat, and eject pre-processed information at pre-processed problems. You're never going to walk into a grocery store and try and buy 12 watermelons without knowing how many dimes you have in your pocket, right? It's been taught to generations of students the same incorrect way for years. Common Core has been an attempt to make us think more in depth at the, quote, process of thinking, but have only left us asking more questions than we have originally. It's like pre-packaging something that was made to be prepared fresh, like chicken in a can. The process of thinking is an experience, not a textbook. In fact, Common Core spent approximately $10 billion to change testing in textbooks nationwide. Imagine the effect $10 billion can have if schooling can rely on open-ended solutions in Dungeons & Dragons. We've been molded by Henry Ford's standardization assembly line for too long. When will we start producing humans instead of consumption machines? Thank you for your time.